This is Robert Grapheton. I'm your host on SNN.Network, and joining me today is Bob Goldstein. He is the chairman and CEO of US Nuclear Corp. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is UCLE on OTC markets. Bob, good to see you. How are you holding up?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. So before we get into anything, I have to ask, how's the family? How are you? Everyone safe, sound?
I appreciate, everyone's safe and sound, and we're good so far, and we're all swimming through this together. Yeah. How about yourself?
We are good. We're quarantined. The whole team is quarantined, and just taking it day by day, right?
That's the safest thing to do. Absolutely.
That's for sure. So we've done a number of interviews on here before, but for those who may have missed some of them, or your presentation that you just did for our virtual event, let's get a quick overview and history of the company, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So US Nuclear Corp is really started out as technical associates. We were a spin-off from the Manhattan Project, where they developed all the original radiation detection equipment to keep those brainiacs from toasting themselves while they were developing the atomic bomb. And so that was back in '46, they tell me. I'm not that old. And so and all our stuff was in the original nuclear Navy. Every ship had our cutie pies and our Juno radiation safety meters. And so we've been at it ever since. Now we're reaching out to we're spreading out to more detectors. We're flying drones with radiation and chemical sensors on there, and also collecting biological samples. So we're trying to be the sensor company, and I think it's working. There's so much, you read about all these companies that are doing heavy data analysis and learning all about the world and going to make the world work better, but you can't do any of that without sensors. You need some data coming in, and we're high-tech manufacturers, so that's our scope now.
I think that's very reflective of your background right now, wanting to make the world a better place, right? We got just trying to, so I like it. It's apropos. So, we last had you on for an interview in May last year. So what are some highlights from the company in the last 12 months?
Let's see. So we made a big shipment to Saudi Arabia of drones to help with their homeland security, and we've got another big batch coming up to check for their, make sure their oil wells are doing fine and no leaks. We can check for leaking methane and stuff like that too. We're providing to the products to the national laboratories and homeland security here as well. And of course, we do good business with the nuclear power plants. We have some special products that very few other people have, like our tritium sensors and our radiation, our effluent sensors for radioactivity in the liquid effluent from the power plants, make sure they're being good citizens and not polluting the world.
Got it. This is a question I don't think I've asked you in a while, or may not have asked before, but the company's been around for so long, as you said, to spin off from the Manhattan Project. You've worked with governments around the world, you big institutions. What's the competitive landscape look like for US Nuclear?
Well, there's quite a few radiation detection companies, some big like Thermonuclear or Areva, huge companies. A lot of them very, very small. We're small too, of course. And that's another reason why we're now going into a complete suite of different sensors. They call it CBRNE, chemical, radiological, nuclear, and E on the end for explosives. We're also doing explosive detectors. So that's sort of the answer on that.
Got it. So I have to ask, as we alluded to at the very beginning here, we're in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I have to ask, has it impacted operations at all?
Oh yes, sir. So being safe, we're considered a vital industry, so we're still manufacturing. You can't be a manufacturer without, you can't do that from home, unfortunately. But we have, about 30% of our people working from home, and the rest are working. We've got split shifts, so we have less people in the building, and all the sanitation and masks and gloves. So we're keeping pretty safe.
That's good to hear. You're local to us in Los Angeles, so it's good
Yeah.
to see that the business is up and running and
Right.
continuing to run. So, Bob, I want to dig into some of the news that the company's been putting out in the last few months. The first of which is the announcement of this partnership with Grapheton. Can you explain a little bit more about this news and what this means for the company?
Yeah, so Grapheton is a startup. We're their angel investor. We're the first major investor. We bought 40% of the company. Uh, the the goal is eventually to own, a majority stake, and I think everybody's there knows about that too. The they're in the same space as Elon Musk with his Neuralink, looking at brain stimulation, but also uh, I mean, that's the beginning of that industry, but nowadays it's not just stimulation. We want to know what people are thinking, and so the systems that Grapheton makes look at individual nerves, what uh, their their output, and also they stimulate, but they can also listen to the nerves, or they can listen to broad regions or just single nerves. And they also have a unique thing. They look at the chemical soup uh, that that's in the brain to look for different chemicals, and so because that makes a big difference. We all know that if you're excited and you got that adrenaline going, your decision making process is different, and that's because that adrenaline is in the brain, and the little nerves are listening to that. So we're getting more data in and out uh, with the nerves in the brain. And this will also be important for prostheses. There's so much work on artificial skeletons that move for you, or veterans or other people who need new limbs that are actually working. And so being able to uh, talk with the nerves directly is very important.
Got it. And I mean, how is US Nuclear involved with the company in the sense that, are you providing any of your technology to help them move what they're developing forward, or is it more just business strategic advice?
So yeah, we'll be helping out with management. They're all technical over there, uh, not business people, and so they're glad to have that off their shoulders. But uh, but also they're very much into the front end, the electrodes and the amplifiers and the data analysis. But so we'll be at US Nuclear. We'll be making the data analysis electronics and the displays, where they'll be they'll be making the electrodes and the implants.
So, Bob, my next question is, the company just announced then on May 12th, and I quote, this is the headline of the press release, U.S. Air Force Mach 2 code test U.S. Nuclear and MIFTI progress towards goals of producing medical isotopes and electric power. Can you describe this announcement and what this means for the company?
Certainly. So this stems from an article that Dr. Hafiz from MIFTI published in a fusion journal 2 weeks ago, and what they've been working for years and years to get their fusion going, and so fusion power is, of course, what powers the sun, the only reason the whole universe lights up is because of fusion power. So it's a big deal. And so we feel they're the most advanced company in that field. And they've been doing experiments and building prototype for different sizes, different powers. But the results that he published in the article, when you're developing a new product nowadays, you do your test, you build something, you test it, but then you also do the analysis, the simulation. That's what the code, what it says, U.S. Air Force Mach 2 code. It's the Air Force's simulation that they use to make the jets work right, because it's what the gases are doing. You have to make sure that in the jet engines, the gases are burning right and they're going out the back end at high speed. So same general space as doing fusion, where you have a very dense gas which you're compressing, super compressing it with magnetic field and with electricity going through there and with shock wave. And so the simulation using the Air Force's software that showed that they're certainly on the right track. And actually it surprised them because it said that the system that they've designed and are testing has potentially the capability to actually go all the way to what they call break even, which would mean that you're getting more power out than you're putting in, which of course you can't, if you're trying to create electric power and help run the electrical grid, then you need that. And on the way, about halfway up there, then they have enough power and enough neutron output to make the medical isotopes that they've been trying to make, and that are in terrible short supply for all the hospitals.
Got it. So my next question is, and I know the company hasn't reported earnings yet, but can you tell us a little? I know we're about midway through Q2. So can you tell us a little bit about the company's performance for Q1?
Yeah. So we're we're roughly 4 million a year company, and we'll be in that range for this year as well. But it is a rugged year because the supply chain is a little bit broken, and also our people have have been doing some sheltering, and so we've had less man hours, but we'll still be in the 4 million range. We are looking at other acquisitions.
All right. Well, with that, where can my audience go and find more information about US Nuclear and everything they need to know?
Go to usnuclearcorp.com, or just look up the UCLE symbol and you'll see us.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do really appreciate it. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to the next update.
Thanks, Robbie. Thanks so much.